This video has a bold title. Steel Vengeance is the greatest roller coaster of all time. It's the GOAT, greatest of all time. We like to label things as GOATs. We have a football GOAT, a basketball GOAT, but it's hard to label something or someone as a GOAT as the one that stands above all others. I do think Steel Vengeance is the best roller coaster in the world, and it's my personal favorite roller coaster. But I want to make the argument for why it should be regarded as the roller coaster GOAT. By that I mean it sets the bar to stand on top of the roller coaster world. It's like how if you want to say LeBron James is the greatest basketball player of all time, you compare him to Michael Jordan, not Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. In 2020, when we have RMC Gwazi, the Busch Gardens Intamin, Kings Island Giga, Zadra, all these rides will be compared to Steel Vengeance, and Steel Vengeance still might have all of these rides beat. For a GOAT to be a GOAT, it must be generally regarded as the best in its community. On Coaster Buzz's top 100 coasters, Steel Vengeance sits on top with a crazy lead, and it was the first coaster to ever debut at number 1 in this list. The score is even more impressive considering out of the 190 people who gave it a rating, at the worst 180 people gave it a 5-star and 10 gave it a 4-star, so at least 95% gave it a perfect score out of a large sample. It may not be everyone's favorite roller coaster, but nearly everyone loves it. In the Golden Ticket Awards, which is more or less the only official printed ranking of roller coasters, it came in at 3rd, but considering how Fury 325 debuted at 4th in its first year, and then jumped up to number 1, and it's stayed there ever since. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Steel Vengeance make that jump next year. The Golden Ticket Awards uses a voting system, so many voters don't get the opportunity to ride all the newest roller coasters. But since Steel Vengeance is at Cedar Point, the roller coaster mecca everyone keeps coming back to, eventually nearly every roller coaster enthusiast will ride this thing, and this is fitting as Cedar Point has been home to the only 2 roller coasters I would consider had a GOAT status, Madden Metso 200 and Millennium Force. Steel Vengeance is made by Rocky Mountain Construction, or RMC. The coasters give excellent airtime with crazy inversions and tight maneuvers while delivering a flawlessly smooth ride. This all started with RMC trying to decrease maintenance on traditional wooden roller coasters, but instead they invented a box track which has changed what roller coasters are capable of. Right now, they're making the best roller coasters in the world. Personally, I've only been on 5 RMCs, and 4 of them are in my top 7 coasters. If you go back to Coaster Buzz, it's the same story. It's jam-packed with RMCs at the top. As such, Steel Vengeance being the tallest, fastest, and longest RMC very much helps its case for GOAT status. I really want to talk about the insane length of Steel Vengeance. More than its height and drop and speed, its length is what sets it above the rest. And you may not realize how long it is because if you look at the list of the top 10 longest roller coasters, it is not on there, but it is just outside at number 11. If you just compare it to hyper roller coasters about the same size of 200 to 300 feet, it is number 3, and we don't get to 9 or 10 where you have some actual good hyper roller coasters. A lot of 1 through 8 besides Steel Vengeance are these sort of lackluster hyper roller coasters. But if we plot all of the RMC roller coasters, we see that when Steel Vengeance came out, we have these smaller RMC coasters, these mid-tier RMC roller coasters, and then Steel Vengeance. It is in its own category. Now, Hakuge, which opened up in Japan, is bridging that gap, but still Steel Vengeance sits on top. And when Zadra and RMC Gwazi open up, those are still not quite match the insane length of Steel Vengeance. And this is good considering how many of the taller RMC roller coasters like Outlaw 1, Iron Rattler, Goliath, when these are first coming out, they just had extreme length problems being very short rides for their heights, and many other RMC coasters had short ride times. Lightning Rod is one of the best RMC roller coasters, but is still pretty short, and Twisted Colossus is helping out, but it's more like joining together 2 very short roller coasters to get a long experience. And I went and measured out all of the duration, the true duration of the ride, which is generally just the drop to the break run, the actual time you're spending going through these elements, and Steel Vengeance is so far above the rest of the pack. It is, again, in its own category. Even when Twisted Colossus has 2 lift hills, it is still longer by about 15 seconds. And if we look at the average, it is 30 seconds above the average length of an RMC coaster. And if we just do Steel Vengeance after the break run, just plotting the time after the break run, it is still longer on rides like Outlaw 1 and Storm Chaser. Just ridiculous. It's like a whole RMC coaster on its own, Steel Vengeance after the break run. Before the break run, however, is what's special about this ride. It is one of the best drops I've ever experienced, 200 feet, and you're going straight down for a good portion of the drop. There's a picture you can take of the train where the entire train is angled straight down. So much airtime on that first drop, but it takes advantage of that speed it has that not many other RMCs get close to have these two massive airtime hills. The first one's almost like a top hat. It is ejector airtime all the way out over that top. It is a long experience. And then there's the second airtime hill is like an outer bank turn, and you are launched again throughout that entire element. It is one of the craziest experiences I've ever had on a roller coaster. And then you get the two best inversions right after that. So it's really before the break run that I think this ride is really special and sets it above all the other RMC coasters. After the break run is a more typical layout of an RMC roller coaster, but it's these dives in and out of the structure and these near miss elements below the entire structure of the ride that really enhance the ride experience for me. Now, Steel Vengeance is all about that abrupt, crazy strong airtime. In Mitch Harper's 2013 roller coaster poll, voters were asked to rank 6 coaster forces or sensations, and out of 581 ballots, 263 ranked abrupt airtime number 1. That's 45%, and an additional 107 ranked it number 2. So almost 2/3 ranked it in the top 2 out of 6. Overall, it's enthusiasts' favorite feeling on a coaster, and if you don't like that feeling, then you won't like Steel Vengeance. But no coaster tries to launch you out of your seat more than this ride. Now, here is a supercut of every moment of airtime on Lightning Rod. It has a ton of good airtime, and it might be Steel Vengeance's best competition, but just as we're starting to talk about it, it's over. It's only 11 seconds long. Compare that with Steel Vengeance. This one has 27 different cuts. Out of the 10 records it broke, the most airtime on any roller coaster is the most important. It took that title from The Voyage at Holiday World. It is the teen of that which coaster enthusiasts love the most. If this statistic were well measured, it would just show how insane both these coasters are. The Voyage has 24.3 seconds of airtime, and Steel Vengeance claims 27.2. This supercut is a bit longer at 27.9. Even with all the focus on airtime, it is still tied for the most inversions on a roller coaster taller than 200 feet, although that won't last long. And it has great overbank turns and plenty of positive Gs. It is a versatile coaster, even the airtime is given in tons of different ways. If you still aren't convinced Steel Vengeance is the GOAT, maybe you're thinking, what about Fury? What about Maverick? What about El Toro? Anything? Then fine, you disagree with me. I don't have time to counter-argue every coaster. But it's already been a year since it opened, and more coaster fans will start to agree with me, and it's high time we start calling Steel Vengeance the coaster GOAT, and it may take a long time till it gets its throne taken away. Thanks for watching.